Good evening, Your Worship, councillors, and my fellow Monctonians. My name is Wil Robertson, and I am an organizer of Basic Income New Brunswick and the NB rep for Coalition Canada Basic Income. I come before Council today to advocate for the city's support for a federally funded guaranteed livable income. A guaranteed livable income is an income floor beneath everyone's feet that eliminates the risk of falling into poverty should disaster strike. A GLI aims to be sufficient to allow people to live a life with dignity and the ability to afford necessities. A GLI should be accessible to those who need it, based solely on the condition of income and residency, sufficient to live with dignity and security, respecting the autonomy of individuals and avoiding stigmatization and overly burdensome oversight, complementing the other elements of our social safety net, and delivered reliably while changing with your income level. These are the foundational principles of a GLI. Your Worship, according to a study on deep poverty in New Brunswick, 6.2% of New Brunswickers live below the low-income cutoff, and 14.7% of them live below the market-based measure. According to ESIC, 16.9% of New Brunswickers live below the low-income measure poverty line. As of 2020, according to the city's Poverty and Social Inclusion Committee, 1 in 5 Monctonians are living in poverty, while 28% of our city's children endure the consequences of poverty as well. Last I spoke in this chamber at Youth Fest, Your Worship may recall my plea to the city to act as a facilitator in proactively tackling poverty. While I applaud the city's efforts in making these efforts in this regard, I return to Council as there's more to be done. Isn't there always more to be done? According to the PBO, a GLI would lift 32.6% of those living below the market-based measure above it. GLI would bring 90.8% of those living below the low-income cutoff up and above it. And GLI would lift 10.7% of those living below the low-income measure up and over it to a life of dignity. A guaranteed livable income is quite possibly the most effective tool we have not yet implemented to tackle poverty in our communities. It has been shown to improve health outcomes, lower the burden on our healthcare system, reduce the impacts of food insecurity, and improve mental health. A GLI can also be a savior to those fleeing intimate partner violence and to folks facing the ever-worsening impacts of climate change. Basic income is no longer a radical idea. Basic income is supported by the NDP, the Greens, dozens of Liberal MPs, including those in New Brunswick, and indeed some Conservatives. Basic income finds supporters in Senator Nancy Hartling, along with over 50 of her senatorial colleagues. Former Prime Minister Brian Mulroney has voiced his support for basic income, along with former Senator Hugh Segal. The Missing and Murdered Indigenous Women and Girls report also called for the implementation of a guaranteed livable income. 78% of Liberals support a GLI, while 26% of Conservatives do as well. And a GLI is a hallmark of the Liberal platform in the Ontario election, while PEI's legislature has unanimously supported the implementation of a basic income in the province. From Halifax to Victoria, municipalities are calling for the implementation of a basic income. Long have the federal and provincial governments downloaded the costs, responsibilities, and consequences of poverty to municipalities. In calling for the implementation of a guaranteed livable income, the City of Moncton can proactively advocate for an effective economic tool to tackle poverty in our city, province, and indeed in our country. Your voice matters and is heard, and I ask that you use it to boldly call for a guaranteed livable income for the benefit of all Monctonians and New Brunswickers facing the strife of poverty. Thank you, and with that I'll gladly take your questions.
You said that people have better mental and physical health when they have a guaranteed income. According to you, do you think that the health system could benefit from a guaranteed livable income?
Income is tried for more than a year in this country. What Mincome taught us, Dr. Evelyn Forget, who's just been inducted into the Order of Canada for this research, showed that roughly 10-15% of hospital visits, which may seem like an insignificant number at this moment, but anybody who has any idea about that, about a hospital, knows that 10% is a pretty big number. And that was the reduction of hospital visits during the time that a guaranteed livable income was implemented in the communities of which participated in MINCOM. But also at the same time, it's predicted that if a GLI were to be implemented across the country, the estimated cost of a guaranteed livable income federally is about $42 billion. Just let that sit for a second. The savings in the healthcare system alone is estimated at $20 billion annually. It's safe to say that even in healthcare costs, it begins to pay for itself. And in something we realized quite quickly, which you aptly suggested, and which I mentioned, is that income and income inequality is at the center of almost every social strife and social issue we face. Councillors, you're all aware of this. You face this every week, and you discuss this every week. But whether it be, homeless people in our city, or whether it be people struggling with addictions, again, as I mentioned, people fleeing intimate partner violence, people who are stuck in generational poverty, right, brings about a plethora of different issues at various levels. And not only are there savings in healthcare, but also other kinds of savings in different types of care, but also in education. There were higher education outcomes. More people graduated high school in Manitoba when a guaranteed livable income was implemented. So these are other considerations to have as well.
My last question is on artificial intelligence.
Sure.
And its impact on the economy and the livelihood of citizens. And I'm sure that you know that there are many changes that are predicted in this area in the future, such as future without human workers. We're talking about taxing the robots. So, and we know that many jobs will disappear because the robots will be replacing humans. Would basic income play an important role to counter the economic impact on workers of the future?
Recall the first time you saw an automated checkout. Not long ago, right? And go to Walmart now, go to Shoppers now. How many automated checkouts do you see? So it's not hard to see, and of course automation coming into the food and service industry. There's examples all over North America of robots and AI being introduced into that sector in particular, which is being looked at further. So there's no doubt in my mind and the mind of many others and many experts, particularly in economics, who will say that automation is one of the greatest threats to our understanding of labor and work. And so if we're going to expect people to thrive and live with a life of dignity in our economy, then we need to know that they have an ability to have an income. And so guaranteed livable income seems to be the best logical solution, the best economic solution as well to that problem, which is only growing larger, as you pointed out.
Deputy Mayor Legier.
Thank you. Thanks for I guess, bringing this forward. You're right that it's been piloted a number of times and it's shown a lot of success. So from I guess the municipality perspective, in New Brunswick, the 8 Cities Association, which the mayor is on that group, that might be something that they could champion and look at moving forward, along with les municipalités francophones du Nouveau-Brunswick. Certainly, I think COVID-19 has increased the awareness of we have to do something different, and simply looking at things happening in our society with homelessness, with a variety of different situations. You raise that whole industry related to restaurants and service industry and so on, who now really struggle, and they try to find people. So this certainly would, I think the timing is right. There's always going to be differences of opinion because of provincial governments. So you mentioned Ontario, the Liberals were very much moving forward in that, and it didn't seem to get the same traction with the Conservative government. So I think that would I think the timing is right. I think there needs to also, though, be a little more education, because some people will automatically feel that if you do that, then what you're doing is you're rewarding people for really not working. And we hear that an awful lot. But what we don't take into consideration sometimes are the situations that these individuals are going through. Some have mental health issues. There's a whole variety of different things. And because you look fine and you look normal doesn't mean that there isn't something that, you know, you're dealing with. So I think this is a good opportunity. I mean, we certainly, maybe that might get, I think would give it more traction, you know, unless there's, you know, a movement around council that we weren't in favor of that. But I think from, you know, at least I think it's worth moving forward in a more organized way.